My name is Thomas Thatcher. I am 58 years old. 3 weeks ago, my daughter called to ask me not to come to her own wedding. Because she said I would embarrass her fiancé's wealthy family, I agreed calmly and stayed home. What none of them knew was that the same week, I was asked to disappear. An unopened county letter sat on my desk, carrying the name of the very family that had decided I was not fit to sit in their banquet hall. Before I tell you what happened next, please hit like and subscribe. Drop your city and local time below. I love knowing where you are listening from now. Let me take you back to a bridge I built 22 years ago, and a promise I made to a dying woman about the daughter we raised together. My wife Carol died when Emily was 12, cancer, the kind that gives you no time to bargain. I held her hand in that hospital room and promised I would raise our girl right, though I only knew steel and concrete, load and tension. Not how to braid hair or comfort a crying child. I learned badly, then better, showing up to every recital straight off the job site, the only father in work boots in a room full of suits. 22 years ago, when the old river crossing failed inspection and the big engineering firms wanted more than the county could afford, they came to me, Thatcher Structural, just myself, and a crew of 11 back then. I designed and built the Holleran Bridge. 4 lanes, 200 feet of steel and concrete that this town has crossed every single day since, without a second. Thought that is how you know a bridge is built right? Emily grew up knowing her father built things, but to a child, a father is just dad. The man who fixes the sink and smells like sawdust. She never fully understood that engineers from 3 states called my office for advice. That the county would not approve a major structure without a name like mine attached to it. I never spelled it out. You do not earn respect by announcing it. You earn it by the thing standing there, holding weight, year after year. The wedding envelope arrived last autumn, cream-colored with gold trim. Emily's name beside a man called Daniel Smith. I laughed out loud in my empty house and already knew the suit I would wear. 3 days later, Emily called, her voice wrong from the first word, Dad, I think maybe it's better if you don't come. She came by 2 days later and finally told me the truth, sitting at my kitchen table, unable to look at me, Daniel's mother. Vivian was worried about appearances, about my hands, my truck, my trade. She said you'd make me look small in front of them. Emily said, crying. I asked her one question, and you believed her? No. She said, I don't know, I'm scared, Dad. I drove out to the Holleran Bridge that evening and sat in my truck at the overlook, watching cars cross it without a second thought. The same bridge Vivian Smith's world quietly depended on without any of us knowing it, yet on my desk at home sat an unopened county letter. Headed for my office 2 days earlier, I let it sit. A man can only handle one heartbreak at a time. And that week, my heart was already full. At the diner on Main Street, I overheard 2 county men in the next booth mention the Smith Group's Riverside Towers development. Frozen, waiting on an independent structural review after the original engineering firm was flagged for falsifying load reports. The board wanted someone with a clean name. There were only 2 engineers in the region, qualified and trusted enough for a project that size. One had retired to Florida, the other had built the Holleran Bridge. I drove back to my office faster than I should have and picked up that county letter. Held it and set it back down without opening it. Some part of me already sensed what was inside and was not ready. Meanwhile, my sister Maggie attended the rehearsal dinner in my place and told me afterward how Vivian toasted the room, calling Emily's father a working man too busy with his trade to attend, drawing quiet laughter from her side of the family. But Daniel, the groom, had frowned when his mother said it. A small crack that Maggie noticed, and I filed away. Days later, Daniel came to my house himself, and when I mentioned the bridge on the north end of town, the color drained from his face. My father talks about that bridge in every pitch. He said he calls it the gold standard. He's never known who built it. I learned the rest later, pieced together from Daniel and things that surfaced afterward. Richard Smith, Vivian's husband, had borrowed heavily against the Riverside development, staked his family's fortune on it, and was now frozen without county approval. His original engineer's reports too compromised to trust. There were only 2 names on the board's approved list, and he did not yet know one of them belonged to the man his wife had just publicly humiliated at a garden luncheon days before the wedding. I wish this had gone differently. I wish Vivian Smith had judged my daughter's family by something other than the calluses on my hands. And I wish Emily had trusted her own instincts sooner, instead of nearly erasing me from her wedding to keep a stranger's peace. But wishes do not undo a lifetime of people measuring worth by the wrong currency. The truth does. I texted Emily the night before the wedding, telling her I loved her more than anything I had ever built, and that if my absence made her day easier, I would stay home gladly. She replied with 3 words, "I love you." Then a moment later, "I'm so sorry it cut deeper than anything since. Carol, but I meant what I told Maggie. I was not going to make my daughter fight a war on the happiest day of her life." The night Daniel left my kitchen table, pale with the realization of exactly whose bridge his father had been quietly bragging about for years, I sat alone, reviewing every detail Maggie had reported from that garden luncheon and rehearsal dinner, matching it against the timeline of Richard Smith's stalled development. Just before midnight, I finally opened the county letter that had sat on my desk for days. Inside was the formal request I already suspected. The county board inviting Thatcher Structural to conduct the independent review of the Riverside Towers project. The only name left on their approved list, 12:03 in the morning. I am 58 years old. I am, for the first time in 3 weeks, holding something Vivian Smith did not know existed. Across town, Richard and Vivian Smith were almost certainly still confident their development would eventually clear review through connections and pressure, with no idea the one signature capable of saving their entire fortune belonged to the working man they had just spent a garden party publicly humiliating. The following week, Richard personally called my office requesting a meeting about the Riverside review. His voice carrying none of the confidence Vivian had shown weeks earlier. I agreed to conduct the review professionally, exactly as I would for any client, because my work has never once been about revenge. He looked at me across that conference table, the way frightened men often do, expecting the laborer his wife described. He was not looking at that man he never had been. Carol used to say that a man is measured by what stands after he is gone, not by what he says about himself while he is here. I always thought she meant the bridge. I understand now she meant something larger. That quiet, honest work eventually speaks for itself, louder than any room full of crystal and white linen ever could. Richard Smith's development received its review, conducted with the same integrity I've applied to every project in 40 years. And the Riverside Towers move forward on solid engineering rather than family connections. Vivian, by every account, has said considerably less about tradesmen since learning whose signature her family's fortune ultimately depended on. As for Emily and Daniel, their marriage began with a father finally welcomed at every family gathering since, hands and all. I think of Carol every time I drive across the Holloran Bridge now, and I think, the things you build quietly, without ever needing to announce them, are usually the things that end up holding everyone's weight in the end. If you have ever been underestimated by someone who never bothered to learn what you had actually built, I want to hear your story. Tell me in the comments, and if this one moved you, subscribe to Dad's Revenge Tales. There is more where this came from.